Hi, welcome to Jovie's home, where I put out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. In today's video, I'm going to go over the different types of childcare that are available in the Netherlands, how each of them works, what they mean, the pros and cons, and then I'm going to go over the rules. So today we're going to talk about daycare centers, Gastouders aan huis, live-in au pairs, and peuterspeelzaals, what that all is and how we pay for it, and what you can expect. So if that sounds good to you, then go ahead and kick off your shoes, come on in and stay a while. I'm really glad you're here. So in the Netherlands, in daycare centers, you have different types of groups. You have a vertical group or a horizontal group. What this means is this is like the philosophy of the daycare center, how they believe, what is the best way to have your child raised. In a vertical group, you will have, for example, 12 children and 2 adults in a group, and the ages of the children will range from the newborns all the way up until age 4, which is when you must stop attending daycare because you go to school. So there's a mix of like babies and toddlers and then a little bit older kids. What I understand the philosophy behind this is that this is kind of like a home type environment where you might have, older siblings and younger siblings. It also enables the younger children to learn from the older children. So, when they're doing like potty training and things for the older kids, the younger kids are getting to see that. And then also it enables the older kids to learn how to care for younger children. So for example, if you have one child, they're in daycare and then you get pregnant and you're gonna have a second baby, your older child will already know a little bit around how to be around babies. So this is the vertical group. And then you have horizontal groups in daycare, and that is where, they'll say everyone from age, let's say 3 months until 1 year is in this group, and then 1 to 2 years is in this group, and then 2 to 3, etc. You get the idea. But they keep children of the same age together. I understand that the benefit of this is, sometimes in the vertical groups, you might have like more babies and less older kids, and then the older kids might get bored. If they're in a horizontal group with all children of their own age, then they're all more likely to play together. It's what you prefer as a parent, but be aware that these are kind of like the 2 styles of daycare centers that exist in the Netherlands. Another thing that you can look out for is there are some daycares that employ people who speak English, and then others are Dutch spoken daycares. In high expat areas, Amsterdam, The Hague, Rotterdam, there will be a few daycare centers that are catering kind of towards the expats, and they will have, English spoken in the daycare center. Now, this is again up to you. It depends how long you're staying in the Netherlands, what your wishes are for your child or for your children. But from personal experience, it was fantastic to have our son in a Dutch daycare, even though neither my husband nor I speak Dutch. It was fantastic. He learned a language just by attending daycare, the local language. So now when he's playing with kids like from our neighborhood, Dutch kids, he can speak Dutch to them. He is integrated into this country, prepared for Dutch school if he's going to attend Dutch school at some point. So, this is great. I mean, it's like language classes for your baby. And from our experience, we did not have any issues with him struggling to learn English or Serbian or Spanish because he was also learning Dutch. So it was great. The English spoken the daycares where they do speak English, those are also quite popular, so be aware that there might be waiting lists for those. Another consideration when it comes to choosing a daycare center is there are some where they'll serve warm meals and others where they'll serve cold meals, and by cold meals I mean sandwiches. In the Netherlands, in general, lunch is, cold sandwich type of lunch. But depending on what country you're coming from, that might be different for you. So you might have a preference for a warm lunch. In that case, if that's what you like for your child, just be aware that not every daycare is offering that. So look around, do some research, Google like in your neighborhood or in your area. And then of course, consider, do you want the daycare closer to your work or closer to your home? How that's gonna work. That's, kind of up to you. Depending on what you're looking for, if you're looking for an English-speaking daycare with warm meals, be prepared that the waiting lists can be quite long sometimes. So as ridiculous as it might sound, but the minute you find out you're pregnant, maybe you can wait for the 3-month mark, but once you're 12 weeks pregnant, you should already sign up and go for the waiting lists. If you're in Amsterdam in particular, also some areas of The Hague, depending on which daycares you're looking for. So be prepared that you are never going to be too early in terms of signing up your kid to go to a daycare center. One of the benefits of going to a daycare center, as opposed to some of the other childcare options I'm going to discuss, is that the daycare center is always going to be open. Let's say there will always be somebody there. So if the employee gets sick, there will be a substitute, or somebody goes on holiday or whatever, there will be other people taking over. The daycares are only closed on official public holidays, which is generally when you would also have off work. So you don't need to worry if your child is going to a daycare about the ability of your child, going there at any moment. It's very 100% reliable that you can always go there. But there is a cost of this reliability. So daycare centers are among the more expensive options in the Netherlands. So you have, in general, now this depends on where you live, the area. Are you choosing, more of an expat type daycare with warm meals in English? The price is going to depend, but in general, let's say between 7 and 9 euros per hour is going to be your rate for the daycare. And most daycares offer only a full-time choice. So if your child is in daycare for 1 day a week, you're going to pay for the entire full day. Some do offer half-day scenarios where you can either do mornings or afternoons. This is not super common, so you do need to look for these type of daycares, and you pay for the actual full day. So even if you drop off your kid and let's say they're only there for 6 hours, you're going to pay for the entire, let's say 11 hours that the daycare is open. That's just how it is. So yeah, that is daycares. That covers kind of what it looks like and how it works. Some daycares also in my experience, so in my daycare where my son was going, they asked us if we wanted to sign them up, for example, for a swimming lesson. And then once, all the kids were kind of going in little groups, they would take them to the swimming pool. They were doing yoga lessons. They were doing music classes. They had a reading grandma coming in. So they were doing all kinds of different activities with the kids. And then you have other daycares that are maybe more focused on having the kids outside most of the day and exploring the nature and the woods, and they do this kind of stuff. So it's very nice. It's very, very rare that you will even find a single television inside of a Dutch daycare. So they're really letting the kids just play and explore and use their imaginations most of the time. They're not just going to put them down in front of a TV and let them entertain themselves like that. So that's kind of a daycare rundown, I guess. If I remember anything else, I might come back, and edit it in. So let's see. Next up, we have this thing called a Gastouder, and translated, that means a guest parent. And a Gastouder is somebody who is working for themselves, but they're registered, they're licensed, and they have all of the qualifications that they need to essentially run a daycare from their own home. Gastouder is somebody who is a guest parent who is going to take care of your child in their house. As I said, this is regulated, inspected, and the person is licensed. They still have to have all of the qualifications that somebody working in a daycare does. They need to know CPR. It's not just boom, I decided to hang a shingle and open up a daycare in my house. I wouldn't be able to do that. So this is really regulated. If my research is correct, the maximum children that can be in the house with one adult is 6. So that would be 1 adult and 6 kids. Sometimes there's less. That's how there's not always 6 kids going to the daycare or to the Gastouder. And one of the really big benefits of going to a Gastouder is the fact that they have a really homey environment. So it's not, it's not like a daycare. It really is someone's home. So, it's like maybe a little bit more comfortable depending on the needs of your children, right? So maybe sometimes a daycare center can be overwhelming because there's so many kids and there's so much going on and so much activity. If your child is more into having like relaxed, like slow, chilled out kind of environment, then a Gastouder would be really someone that you could consider. That might be the right choice for you and for your child. There is, at least for me, a drawback in going to a Gastouder, and that is that person might get sick. And if they're sick and if they're not able to take your child in, you're gonna have to take a day off of work. Like you're not, if they can't look after your child, you're gonna have to do it yourself. So that's kind of like a danger. That's something to consider for sure. If you don't have the kind of job where they're willing to be flexible, or if something happens, that's a consideration for you to keep in mind. But also the person might be going on holidays, and when they go on holidays, maybe that's not the same time that you go on your holidays. And so there might be certain times of the year where your Gastouder is unavailable, and then you have to find alternative arrangements. So keep that in mind. On the flip side, having a Gastouder, you can also have a lot more flexibility because it's somebody working from their home. If you maybe work in the evenings and daycare centers are closed, maybe a Gastouder is the person that can help you out. Or, if you have a relationship with them and then maybe you need some you need some childcare over the weekend. A Gastouder would be a good person because that's somebody that has a relationship with your child. You could bring them to their house. Maybe they could come over to yours. There's a little bit more flexibility because there's more of a relationship between you and the carer of your child. So different things to consider depending on your needs. And then the cost is usually a little bit less. So for the Gastouders, it's somewhere between €4 and €6 depending on their experience and skill level. So between €4 and €6 an hour. The next option is it's called Gastouder aan huis, which means a guest parent in your house. So instead of the previous Gastouder that I was discussing, where your child goes to them, in this case, the Gastouder comes to you. In order to have this system set up, basically for the purposes of how the system works, is you become a daycare center, like your home becomes a daycare center, and the agency, because you have to work with an agency to regulate this, like to get this kind of care at your house. The agency would come, they would make sure that it's a safe working environment for the Gastouder, that there are certain rules of certain things that must be around, safety standards, etc., that must be implemented in your house. But you become an employer for that person. And so certain employment rules that protect an employee will apply to you as the employer, if that makes sense. Yeah, so sanitary, your house has to be like clean enough and tidy enough and safe enough, for the person. So I'm not trying to scare you, like most houses are fine, but there are going to be certain things that the authorities are going to look for at your house before they say, yes, this is a safe working environment for another person. One thing that is really important to note here, one huge difference between the Gastouder aan huis and the other two options that I've discussed, is that there is a maximum number of working hours for the Gastouder aan huis, and that is 30 hours per week. So if you are working full-time, you and your partner are working full-time, you would need to hire 2 different Gastouders. So maybe one would work 3 days a week and the other one would work 2 days a week, or whatever arrangement that is. But you would not be able to have one person 5 days a week working as your Gastouder aan huis. That is not allowed. Gastouder aan huis is pretty pricey, somewhere between 12 and 15 euros per hour. However, this might make sense for you if you have more than one child. So if you have like 2 or 3, 4 or more kids, then the cost of the Houter doesn't fluctuate, like it doesn't change. Like they're still going to be paid between 12 and 15 euros an hour. So that might be more cost effective than, for example, sending your 4 children to daycare. So that really is a personal calculation. That is something to look at. But if you have one child, this is definitely the most expensive option to have a person coming to care for your one child at your home. That will be the priciest. So the next type of childcare option that is available in the Netherlands is called a peuterspeelzaal. It's not, I wouldn't consider it like really childcare, but I'm going to include it in this video because it is somewhat of childcare. This is only available to children who are 2.5 years old and older. It is half day childcare. You cannot have a child for a full day in a peuterspeelzaal. And basically it is it's like a play group. So your child goes, they play a bit, and then they come home. What distinguishes a peuterspeelzaal from the others, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the rules, but a peuterspeelzaal is available for parents who might not both be working. So if you have if you're a stay-at-home parent type of situation, a peuterspeelzaal will still be a good and cost-effective option for you, whereas the others would not be. It's also an excellent option if you don't speak Dutch at home, but your child will be attending Dutch school. By attending peuterspeelzaal a few days a week and playing with Dutch kids, they will certainly be learning Dutch, and this is going to prepare them for school when they turn 4. If you saw my previous video about the consultatiebureau, one of the things that they are able to do, if you have no Dutch spoken at home, or even if you do speak Dutch at home, but there are some other reasons why the consultatiebureau thinks that it's good to give you this, they might give you a referral where you can go 4 half days per week to peuterspeelzaal, and then this would also be subsidized heavily by the government if you have the referral from the consultatiebureau. And if not, if you are just like a regular person, Dutch spoken at home, there's no extra reasons, you might be allowed to put your child in for 1 or 2 days a week. There's less because there is a high demand for this, because it is a cost-effective option. But in general, the peuterspeelzaal is going to prepare your child, as I said, for school. They're going to be working on social skills, playing, and language skills, and that kind of thing. They are also going to be looking for children who are potty trained or potty training. You know, of course they're not going to let your kid be wet or dirty all day long, but they're looking for children who are on their way to being independent on the toilet. So just FYI for that. Now the last option that we're going to talk about is an au pair. This is also, you know, just like any au pair anywhere in the world. You are able to have somebody come from another country and live with you in your home. But also in the Netherlands, this must be regulated through an agency. They help with the visas and work permits, etc. But yeah, you must go through an official agency if you want to hire an au pair. Au pairs are also generally limited to working 30 hours per week at your home, and their duties are to help you raise your children and possibly some sort of like very light household duties, maybe, you know, preparing a meal or something for the children, but not that you would hire an au pair and then while let's say children are at school, she's going to be cleaning your house, doing your laundry, cooking for you, taking care of, like, no, the role of the au pair is really to take care of your children. In general, the salary that you would be paying for an au pair is somewhere between 300 and 400 euros per month. That would be kind of like their pocket money as they would call it, but then you also pay for all of their like living expenses, all of their food, health insurance, everything else. So yeah, that's salary is separate, but you are really paying for everything else. In some of my Facebook groups that I am a part of, I've seen some questions come up over and over again. For example, if you're moving from a country where you already have an existing au pair or somebody that's helping you, and then now you're moving to the Netherlands, are you able to bring your au pair from wherever you are here? In general, the answer is no. You would have to find somebody through the Dutch agencies. You might want to do a bit more research on that if your person can register with the Dutch agency, and then you hire them from there if there's somebody really that you want to bring. But in general, the process would be that you would need to find a new au pair once you're here using the official registered agencies. So, how does this whole daycare thing work? Well, not whole daycare thing, but how does paying for it work? That's a good question. Here's how it works. The cost of the daycare is the same for every single person, right? So if your daycare charges €7.50 per hour, everybody pays €7.50 an hour, no matter what. So based on the number of days that your child is going to the daycare, you're gonna have a bill on the first of the month for a certain amount. So let's say that it's €1,000 per month for daycare, and that's how much you would pay on the first of the month. Everybody that's attending that daycare is going to pay that amount. Then around the 20th of the month, maybe it's different in other municipalities, but certainly in the Hague area, it is on the 20th of the month, you get a reimbursement from the authorities, from the tax authorities, from the tax system, that is specific to your situation. So in order to qualify for this kind of refund, it requires that both parents are either working or following like an official study, course, whether that's like a civic integration course or an official language course. You cannot just sign up for something. Really make sure if you're going to be doing that it qualifies you under this scheme, or that both parents are working. If you meet those criteria, then the government will have a look at your combined salary between the two parents. What is your salary? And then you're going to be in a specific bracket for how much you get back. There is an excellent calculator tool available, and I will have it linked in my description below. I always link references and things when I talk about these kind of educational videos, but you can definitely go ahead and click below in the calculator tool, and there you will enter, how many hours per week you work, how many hours per week your partner works, and how much each of you earn, and the cost, the hourly cost of your daycare, and how many days per week your child is going to daycare. And then you're immediately going to get some kind of calculation that will be an indication to you of how much you will pay and then how much you'll get back. So those rules are very complicated, and the way that the calculations work changes all the time, so I don't want to get too deep into that, but certainly use that calculator tool. It's going to be the most up-to-date and accurate way that you can check so that you have an indication of your actual costs. However, because there's always a however, right? The way that it works is the first year that you have your child in the daycare, you're going to kind of put in your income, and that's going to be your estimated income for the purposes of the refund or the rebate. And so you're going to be getting back a certain amount every month. And then in 1 or 2 years from then the authority responsible for these daycare payments is going to receive from the tax authorities what they call your final calculated income, and that is based on your tax returns that you're doing here. And based on the actual amount that the tax authorities have determined as your final income, you may actually get some more money because maybe you didn't calculate it correctly, or you might have to pay some money back. So just be aware that the money that you're getting, don't think of it as like done and that's all yours, because there have certainly been cases where you suddenly get a bill and have to pay back a chunk of money if that wasn't calculated correctly. This is a very real risk, especially for people who have more than one job, or for people who are working for themselves, freelancers, or people whose number of working hours is not stable. So if you're not having like a 40-hour-a-week job or a 32-hour-a-week job all year, you know, maybe you're a seasonal employee and sometimes you work more and sometimes you work less, then the calculations are not so accurate right away. It's going to be more accurate after your final income is determined by the tax authorities. So maybe if you can, you know, set aside some of that money. That's actually what we did, is part of, like, I opened up a separate savings account and I called it, you know, daycare payments. And I put it there because I don't want to be in a situation where suddenly I'm going to get, you know, a bill and have to pay back, I don't know, a few thousand euros or something, and not have that, like, as just have that ready. Like, I don't want to have to be in that situation. So for the money that I've been receiving from the tax office for this kind of daycare subsidy, that's all gone into a separate bank account. And in, you know, 2 or 3 years, once the final calculations have been calculated and everything's fine, then I know that I can go ahead and spend that. Or in the case of the last year, pay it back. So, but that was what we did. It might be something worth considering for you if you're able to do something like that, or, you know, maybe just take part of it and put part of it away. But yeah, I wanted to mention that for sure. The last thing that I want to mention is, in terms of the rules, is that if you are, you know, one parent is not working, so a stay-at-home parent plus one working parent, that doesn't mean that you can't choose to put your child in daycare. You certainly can, but then you will not qualify for the subsidy. So then whatever price you pay on the first of the month, that is the price you're gonna pay, and that's it. So if you're able to afford that, go ahead and, you know, use that option. And if not, then, well, then you have to wait until your child is 2.5 and they go to the peuterspeelzaal, and that is, again, a much more cost-effective option. So now that we talk about peuterspeelzaal again, this is an option this is really available for people who do have like a stay-at-home parent situation. It's also available for working parents, but because the hours are so limited, and because, you know, you might have a situation where on Mondays your child goes to the mornings, and then Tuesdays the afternoons, and then Wednesdays the mornings, and, you know, working parents can't just be shuttling kids around. Like, it's not so easy. It is an option that a lot of stay-at-home parents, or maybe even working from home parents, people who have a little bit more flexibility in their day-to-day life, can use. So, and also the cost of this is significantly lower. I cannot tell you exactly how much, because that again depends on your specific situation, and then also it depends if the Consultatiebureau has given you a referral. Certain municipalities pay more or less, but it is going to be the absolute cheapest of everything that we've talked about today. So yeah, guys, that's it. That is all the rules that I can, you know, talk about in terms of daycare, the options, the childcare options that are available. Just to recap, if you know that you are looking for something very specific, you want an English-speaking daycare that serves warm meals and has trips to the swimming pool, the minute you are pregnant, go ahead and register, find a place, look for it. In Amsterdam, there are many daycares are full a lot of the time, in The Hague too. And also sometimes the daycare will say like, okay, well, we are able to accommodate your child, but only 3 days a week. And if you need 5 days a week, then you're gonna need to find a different daycare that's available the other 2 days. So there are situations like this, just be prepared that that might happen. But yeah, I mean, otherwise kids here seem pretty happy, you know, well adjusted. Daycare is not so scary. They are clean and regulated, and you know, kids are playing outside. Oh, can I tell you just a quick like little story that like was really a little bit of a shock to me? In the daycare that my son went to, they asked me when we you know started there, they said, well, we let our kids sleep outside. Are you okay with that? And I'm like, sleep outside? Like, do you know that it rains here and it's cold here? But you know, there is some research that says that children sleep the best in the rain. So they do have specific beds that are, you know, covered, of course, but rain, wind, snow, like no, doesn't matter the weather. They will put the babies, you know, very nice and warm, like dress their bodies warm, and then put them in these outside beds, and children can sleep super well. If you're a parent and you've taken your child outside for a walk in their stroller and you know how well they sleep, like from that, it's kind of that same thing. So there are daycares that do that, so just be aware. And if you don't want to do it, then you just tell them no, and then they will exclude your child. They'll be sleeping inside of the regular beds inside the daycare. And then also recently it was in the news that there is a daycare in a different part of Holland where it was snowing here, which is also pretty rare that it snows, but when it did snow, they let the kids run around in their bare feet in the snow just for a couple of minutes, and then they brought them inside and made them warm. There's also some research that suggests that this type of thing like boosts your child's immune system, helps them stay healthier. There was a bit of an outrage about, oh my gosh, why are you letting like toddlers like toddle around in the snow barefoot? But these kind of activities that would be done by a daycare have to be agreed to by the parents before they allow the children to do that. So if your daycare offers you something that sounds crazy to you or just sounds like absolutely not, like it's okay to say no. Again, like it is absolutely fine. You don't have to agree. No matter how the message might come across, it might be very blunt or, you know, very straightforward. Again, that's just like a cultural thing, but you are able to say no. If you love everything about the daycare, but you don't love the walking around barefoot in the snow, like don't be discouraged. You can definitely still attend there and then just not let your kid walk in the snow if you don't want to. So all up to you. Yeah. Oh, and then the last thing that I'm gonna mention is that you can mix and match. So like your child can go to a Gastouder 1 day a week and then daycare 2 days a week, and then whatever, like you can mix and match these kind of things. And then for the purposes of the subsidies, as long as you are going to official registered places that qualify, that have like a specific number, then you will be able to get the money back. So, and then the last thing that I'm gonna mention in terms of paying for childcare options, the first child is always gonna be, let's say, the most expensive. So you're gonna get back the least amount of money for your first child. Then if you have a second child also attending like a daycare center or something like this, then the subsidy will be higher for them. So if you're paying 1,000 euros for the first child to go to daycare, you might only have to pay 250 euros for the second, because then you'll get much more back from the government. So don't think one child 1,000, two children 2,000, three children 3,000. That's not how it works. The calculations are all there. That calculator that I mentioned below, that I've linked below, is going to be helpful to you in determining the amount. Is that really all? Oh, and if you... Dan, are you gonna kill me? Is this gonna make your editing really hard? I'm sorry. For children who are school aged, so if you have a child that is, 4, 5, 6, etc., they're no longer able to attend daycare. From age 4, they start Dutch school. But Dutch school runs from, let's say, 8 a.m. until like 9 a.m. until 2 or 3, and then on Wednesdays, usually around 12, they get out. So for working parents, what do? There is something that they call the BSO, which is basically the after school care program, which also some daycares have arranged, where the daycare will go and pick up your child from school, bring them to the daycare center, and then they will care for them there. In other schools, they have the daycare center on site, but there is childcare available for after school, and also some places before school. This also qualifies for the subsidy as long as it's a registered place. It's kind of like a daycare around school hours. So guys, that's really it. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for coming over. I really appreciate the time that you spent with me today, and I hope that you find this video helpful. As I said, if you have any questions, please leave them below. I will try my best to answer them, or at least to point you in the right direction of getting the right answer for you. And if there's any other topics that you want to know, if you would like me to make a video about some other parenting related topic in the Netherlands, please do let me know. I would love to do that for you. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here today. Thanks for coming over. And please like this video, subscribe, share. If you know somebody that could use this information, please do go ahead and share my videos. I appreciate that so much. Thumbs up, like, subscribe, and I will see you in my next one. Thank you so much, and see you soon. Bye.